Cool. So welcome everyone. It's Kevin Middleton and Paul Spacy. So I did a little discussion with Paul a few weeks back and it was so much fun. We decided to do it again, didn't we, Paul?
Yeah, brilliant. Looking forward to this, mate.
Yeah, last time it was the differences between US and UK soccer, and today it's going to be street football and the death of street football, which I've written about several times and I know you've got opinions on as well.
Yeah, I have. Yeah, that'll be a great one. Yeah, because it's a big topic. Even here in America now, it's something that people have started talking about more. So yeah.
Do they play street football in America? Do they have anywhere to play street football?
Just pockets. It depends on the culture, right? If you're in Miami, certain areas of Miami, and there's a Latino culture, they'd be playing in the streets. Most of the areas, the wealthy areas of LA that I'm in, not really. No one's going on the streets.
Is that a safety thing or just lack of a facility thing? Or
I think it's both. Like, there's not really anywhere to go and kick a ball, or many places to go and kick a ball against a wall or whatever. But it's this, I think it's more of a safety and a worry thing, right? Parents not necessarily wanting their kids on streets. And look, but most of the areas in LA that outside of tiny little pockets, mental traffic all the time.
Yeah, I say safety. That's really, really disrespectful. I didn't mean safety in that respect. I mean like helicopter parenting and parents worrying about their kids and not wanting them to go out on their own. And you know, the rise of supervised coaching in the last 10 to 15 years has played a massive part in that. And it's the same in the UK. You know, I used to walk past parks and they'd be filled with kids, not necessarily playing football, but they would be there hanging out together. You know, you drive past the park or walk past one today and there are no kids there. And I think that's contributed to the death of street football. And there's part society problems in there, and there's part maybe football coaching problems, in my opinion. What do you think of that? That's quite vague, but what do you think of that?
No, it's a really difficult one to answer because I've gone through it in my head a million times and I don't know really what the exact answer is, right? Society has changed since we were kids and everyone was out on the street or out in the park for 5-6 hours a day, and you get a little snack and then come home at the end of the day. I think it has changed a lot. I don't know. We didn't have phones, obviously. There's a big factor. We didn't have phones to play with or people to talk to on Snapchat or whatever. So you would go to the field and just play football with your mates. Now they've got so many things to do. And I look here in America and LA in particular, obviously where I am, so many things for the kids to do, so many distractions, so much going on. And yeah, look, a big, big part of it is around computers and phones, unfortunately.
Yeah, I fully agree, because when I was little, my mom would say, right, go out, come home when you're hungry or it gets dark and you can't see anymore. Nowadays, you know, you don't really go out, you stay in, you play your console, you're on your TikTok or your Snapchat or whatever the kids are doing these days. Sound like an old man now, Paul. Not going to lie, I sound like an old man. But
Same.
My son is now, he's 20 now. And when he was growing up, you know, he was a very quiet boy unless he had his Xbox headset on and he was playing FIFA with his friends remotely and he was screaming and shouting at the monitor. You know, it's a very bizarre thing to witness as someone who's come from a generation where we were never in the house. So I think that's it. What do you think the football impact of that has been, Paul, in your opinion?
I guess the demise of the Maverick, like the player that can do special stuff because they've grown up doing special stuff at the park a million times over against their mates. 1v1s, 2v2s, playing Wembley, heads and volleys that we'd used to play. Like, if you're not doing all of that stuff, how on earth are you supposed to get the reps? How are you supposed to be creative enough just in doing coached, supervised sessions all the time where a coach is trying to get you to do a certain thing?
Yeah, 100%. And I remember when I was younger, you know, I wanted to be Steve McManaman, and my friends started calling me McManaman because I would go by 1, 2, 3, 4, and then lose the ball. But I would go by 1, 2, 3, 4, and occasionally I'd stick it in the top corner and I'd be like, oh, McManaman. And you know what? I'd grow my hair a bit longer like Steve's when he was at his Liverpool heyday, and then he went to Madrid. And I got into it. I got into football. I fell in love with football through that. But, you know, I can't even grow my hair past my ears now, but that's a different story.
Look at me, mate. I can't grow mine past this anyway.
I wasn't going to judge. But, yeah, you're right. The Maverick has died. I can only really think of maybe Phil Foden at the top level, maybe Saka. But I think that through these organised sessions that we talked about, coaches have coached that out of players as well. So it's not maybe just the street's fault. It's probably a coaching fault as well. And I alluded to that earlier on. What do you think about that, Paul? You've coached loads of players.
Yeah, I think it is a coaching fault. And I will openly admit that I've been guilty of it in the past. So I'm not immune from that. I've been guilty of the kid that is very good, technically exceptional, wants to run around everyone and dribble. And I'm saying, hang on a minute. No. You can't just dribble on your own all the time. You got to pass, whatever, trying to get them to do things in a certain way. And then you kind of look back at the videos of Messi when he was 8 or 9, and literally all the clips you see is him just dribbling past everybody in games. And obviously we don't see the clips where he probably lost the ball, but I'm sure the coach wasn't shouting from the sideline, don't dribble, Leo. Stop dribbling, Leo. Stop dribbling. You've got to stop doing that. And so I do think there's a balance, right? Obviously, it's always been and always will be a team game. And so you can't just allow one kid to play on their own in what's a team sport. But at the same time, trying to get them to play in this ticky-taka, tip-tap, pass way all the time, how are you then going to develop those dribbling mavericks? And I think if I look at some of the academy play here, I don't know what the academy looks like in the UK. Academies here are very much stay in your positions, pass the ball, move the ball, and the dribbling part is kind of a secondary thing.
Yeah, it's probably the same here. There's obviously different approaches at different academies. You know, the UK, from an academy point of view, has its faults, but it also has its benefits and positives as well. I just think that, see, if we don't allow players to develop that streak of I'm going to beat you 1v1, or I'm going to win this 1v1, or I'm going to dominate you 1v1, when the game does get bigger, faster, stronger, and it is 1v1, and it's a series of 1v1s, you can't always pass around a team. So if I'm here, defender's here, you're there, Paul, and we're going to play a 1-2, but I play it behind you and I play it to your back foot instead of your front foot, you're then in trouble. You need to escape that pressure. If you've never learned how to do that, you've only learned to pass, you'll not escape that pressure. We as a team will suffer as a result, and then we'll concede chances, we'll concede goals, and we'll concede points. So you're right, there is a balance to be struck. But at the moment, I think coaches are maybe leaning towards this player needs to be able to pass and play in a team rather than be able to escape pressure. And maybe that's because they think they're doing that player a disservice by just letting them go by 2, 3, 4, 5 players at a time. And maybe that's the reason why.
Yeah, no, I think it is. And I think it starts at a very young age. And I talk about this a lot, obviously on Twitter and other social media, the importance of early engagement, right? And this is a big part of it. If you learn at a very young age, I'm not talking about 7 or 8, I'm talking before that, how to manipulate the ball. And that's kind of your foundation up until maybe 5 or 6. And then you're playing with other kids and you start to learn to beat people 1v1, 1v2 or 2v1s. Continue with that process. That's how it should be for me until you're 10, 11, just focused on outplaying. How do you beat other people and how do you defend against other people in a 1v1 situation? Get to 10, 11 years old, you've got a ridiculous foundation as a player then to build on and do all of the other stuff that becomes more complex, obviously.
Yeah, Michael Beale calls it a technical hard drive, and that phrase has stuck with me, and it's true. I've talked a lot about when I was younger, Paul. So in the park with my mates, again, I would try and be like Steve McManaman. When I went to my team, like just get shouted at, pass. Oh, you gave the ball away again. Just constantly moaned at. Made me fall out of love with football. You got to a much higher level than I did. What was it like for you growing up? Were you the maverick, or were you a team player, a passer? What were you kind of developing as?
I definitely as a maverick, and I look back at some of the VHS videos I've got from when I was 9. Like,
on your age now, mate.
Unbelievable, mate. No, Jesus Christ. Yeah, they're stuck in my attic now at home in England, I think. But yeah, when I was 9, I watched some of the clips, and it's me getting the ball and some of the parents shouting, "Go on, Paul!" And I just try and run and dribble through everyone. And at least 50% of the time, I just run straight into a kid and they take the ball off me. And then some of the other times, you do okay, you go past them. And I think from kind of 9 until my mid-20s, every team I played on, I was the top goal scorer. But that came from being selfish as a kid. I know I was a selfish player. I know that. And had I not been a selfish player, wouldn't have probably developed into the player that I was.
It's risk reward though. So you only need to get by someone once and then it's a goal, right?
Yep.
So I'm interested in this. So I don't want to put you on the spot, and it's not a Kevin interview Paul podcast here, but if you were that kind of player when you were younger, what has happened to you as a coach if you've been guilty of coaching that out of players, as you mentioned earlier on?
Good question. I think some parts of my early coaching career, when I was guilty of that, I was probably just too worried about whether the team win and whether that kid gives the ball away or not and impacts our chances of winning. And the longer I've coached and the more experienced I've become, I've moved back towards basically now I try and coach kids in the way that I learned when I was younger, hoping that I can watch a group of kids become better than I was, because I did okay and I got fairly far in the game in terms of a decent non-league level, but still miles away from being a top pro. And I would just love to develop kids or help kids develop better than that. So yeah, I really focus on trying to encourage that maverick aspect.
Listen, you've been humble, and I know a lot of people who've made it a good level in the game, and they say, you know, it's only this level, it's only that level. To get to that level, you've had to beat out a lot of talent and put in an insane amount of hard work. And I think that this is the problem with social media these days, not just what you said, but if you're not an elite football player, then you're probably not seen as good. I'm kind of sliding a little bit, but I'm thinking back, you know, if you had a good game on a Saturday, you're the best player in the world. If you had a poor game on the Saturday, you're the worst player in the world. We just jump from one thing to the other. And I've seen online as well that, you know, people are now being very dogmatic and saying, don't let them dribble, don't practice dribbling, or don't do 4-goal games, or don't do rondos. And for me, as coaches rather, and as a coaching art, we're sliding a little bit, because we think back to, you know, when you were little, when I was little, there was never a shortage of professional players or players going into academy football. And that is still the case these days. But for some reason, we're coaching things out of the game. We're coaching other coaches to lose tools out of their toolbox that may have helped us in the past and may help players in the future. Do you think, again, going back to my point earlier, do you think that coaches need to take responsibility for this problem and make training more like street football, like it was in the park for us?
Got to. I mean, because these kids particularly are not going to do that street football on their own, as we're talking about, if we're not providing that aspect in our training, then they're missing out on that. And they're missing out on a massive part of development. And so we've got to find a way to integrate that street football and some of the things that come out of that, the beneficial parts of it. If we can integrate that into our team practice and the way we coach, maybe we help to bring some of that back. But yeah, doing this kind of rigid way of coaching, I think part of it has obviously been impacted by dripping down from the pro game, right? Seeing the way everything's about a chess move and you against the other coach, your pawns and your knights and whatever, moving players in a certain way. It's just swung way too far on the pendulum, and it's got to come back.
This goes back to my point earlier on. See, at your level where you got to non-league, it would have been the same, right? It would have been tactical. You would have covered tactical elements of it. And to get to that level, go on.
Not as much, just not what I see now.
No, obviously it's
like
gone.
We'd do, if you did one session in 3 or 4 months on pattern play, that's the only time you'd see a pattern play exercise.
Sounds like the dream.
No, like it would, yeah, everyone would be like, oh God, this is something new. Outside of that, it was just the basic stuff and 4-4-2 and work. When I look back, actually, I think one thing from my time playing non-league, there was a slight lack of tactical coaching and understanding. It was more a case of, my mate described this well. He said, I tell you what, non-league football, Paul, it was grit, effort, and magic. That's what it was.
Good way to sum up. My point was going to be that, you know, even to get to that level where you were at, Paul, would require a level of tactical understanding that probably isn't needed further down the pyramid at adult level. So why are we as coaches concentrating so much on what's needed for that kind of level when the majority of players won't even get to that level? For me, if we make it fun, we recreate the streets, recreate the park. God, I did a training session about 5-6 years ago, and I said to the kids, oh, we'll play Worldie. So Wembley, if you're English. And they said, what's Worldie? I was like, it's like you all against each other and one goalkeeper. And if you score, you go through. And if you're the last to score, you are knocked out. And they didn't know what it was. They did not know what the game was.
How tragic that they lose that and they don't even know what it is.
That's just where we're at.
Yeah, I know it's a shame. Actually, some of the kids that I've coached, I watched them once at a field. Now you say that, I didn't expect them to know the game Wembley, and I turned up and I said, "What are you lads doing?" They didn't call it Wembley; they called it something else. But it was 15 of them essentially with a goalkeeper booted the ball in the air, and it's trying to get through to the next round. And I was like, "Oh, how did you know this game?" And they go, "Oh, we just grew up playing this." So
Right.
I guess some kids are doing it.
If you got so you're obviously in a diverse area in LA. There's a lot of nationalities and people with different backgrounds there. Is that street culture still prevalent in any adults in LA? Are people still going to cages and playing if they're available, or five-a-side pitches or anything like that, and still playing this kind of pickup or street soccer?
Yeah, look, the less affluent areas of LA, it happens more, and a lot of just the Latino culture in general is completely football obsessed. And so you go into one of their areas and all the time, pickup games all the time, all the time. Yeah, and so that's missing. But for them, for the Latinos, that's all they do. And then I talked about this a while back on social media. When you go, I walked around a tournament, the later stages of a tournament on the last day to see what teams were left. And this is fairly common. Most of the teams and many of the players were Latino players.
What kind of tournament was it?
It was a decent sized tournament at a big venue with good teams from all different areas playing. So like a good level. And just many of the teams and most of the players were Latinos because they're the kids that have this early engagement and start early and just play football.
It's culture, isn't it? I think you shared the video of the Brazilian beach, and they're all messing around, male and females, just messing around with the ball. And that is the best way to engage and fall in love with football. You, the ball, or you, your friends, and a ball. I think we've said it a few times now. And the quicker we get back to that kind of culture, I think the better it will be, because we'll keep more players involved in football, and we'll keep them in love with football. Because I just see the stats all the time. Players are walking away from the game at an alarming rate. Now, in the US, it's probably not having a massive impact because the player pool is so big. But in smaller countries like Scotland, it is having a massive impact, because where are our referees going to come from? Where are the future coaches going to come from? You know, people involved in football because they love the game. They're on TikTok, or they're on their Xbox, or they're on something that's a bit more fun and easy and accessible, in my opinion.
No, it's true. It's true. They are. And it is easier just to get on your phone. It's easier to go and sit on your Xbox and play. And look, the worrying thing is, when you said then the quicker we get back to it, the better. I agree with you 100%. I'm not sure that we're going to get back to it quickly, because the phones and stuff, it's not just, oh, it's a thing that's been dropped on our laps. All of the apps and everything that's designed, like proper psychologically, to keep people addicted to it. So you're really fighting a tough battle to get kids away from this stuff. It's a really tough battle.
I don't think we're having a tough battle getting them in the door. It's just keeping them in love with football and just being self-critical. We as coaches need to take responsibility for that. You know, training needs to be fun. It needs to be engaging. You have to want them to come back to training. And the easiest way to do that is to have them leave happy and smiling, not kill them to death with rondos and patterns of play and all this stuff that's just killing the fun for them.
Well, what's the best yardstick for that as a coach? For me, it's a really simple one. You get towards the end of practice, it's 9 o'clock. Some of our sessions are 7:30 till 9. It's 9 o'clock. You blow the whistle and, sorry, lads, time's up. We need to get off the field. And everyone's fuming because they're desperate to continue playing. But no better yardstick than when the kids want to carry on at the end of practice. You know it's been a good session.
Yeah, it's been fun. And there's not enough of that. I walked past a session a few weeks back, and the coach was just screaming everything at his players from the sidelines. This was during training. And it was, pass there, do this. You know, if I'm playing, I'm just like, leave me alone. Let me play. Let me just do what I want to do with the ball, not what you're telling me to do. So again, as coaches, I think we need to take responsibility for this. And are we killing the fun? Are we driving the love of the game out of players? Or are we actually doing what we do now echoes in 10 years, right? So are we doing now the actions that will keep them in the game for those 10 years? And it's easy. It's a yardstick for coaches. You have a player, are they going to come back next year? Yes or no? And if they come back, they love football and they like it, and you shouldn't kill that enthusiasm. You just do that every single year until they leave you or the team, or they graduate to another level of football. And it is that simple. Maybe I'm being simplistic by saying that, Paul, so feel free to argue with me. But
it is that, no, it is.
simple.
It is that simple. It is that simple. A kid wants to come back because you've made it enjoyable. And look, I don't, or I'll go away a little bit from the word fun too much. And here's why. I think if the focus is purely only on fun, some of the coaches that I've seen here and some of the stuff that I've seen online, it can drift a little bit away from focusing on improving. And if it's only fun and you miss the improvement part, a lot of the sessions I see here are kids doing fun little games and the crocodiles or whatever words they use. They have fun and they enjoy it. At the end or over a period, I don't know how much they really learn. And so one of the biggest reasons kids stop playing is because they can't compete with their peers anymore. So you've got to make sure that that improvement is a massive part of it, because when a kid feels that they're improving, they're enjoying it. And so for me, I always lean towards get the improvement part right, and the fun part will come naturally, because as they're improving, they'll enjoy it more. That's how I've often looked at it.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. But it's not fun getting beat 10, 11, 12 nil. So you have to develop them, right? That's the fundamental, that's point number one, development. But it can be done in a fun way. I think a lot of coaches are looking at 10-year time span and thinking, I need to make a professional player, or I need to be working in the professional game. So I need to do X, Y, Z now, when they don't. They need to go back to ABC. I think that was my point back then.
No, you're right. And you just said it then. The coach feels as though they need to do something to get further along on their path. And I think that's a massive part of this, that coaches have made it about where they're going, not where can I get the kids, or how can I help these players improve? How can I stand out as a coach and get exposure so that I can go somewhere else?
Yeah, and we've gone on a lot about coaches' responsibility, or I've gone on several rants about this now, Paul, but what about player responsibility? Because it's not always on the coach. I could be 3 training sessions a week and a game at the weekend, and I have the kids for 5 to 6 hours. I cannot take all the responsibility for them, having fun, falling in love with football and developing. So away from practice, what's your thoughts on the kids and how much they do away from practice?
Well, they don't do enough, for sure, in terms of the kids that I've worked with over the last 10, 15 years. And there's this belief, I think, among parents, particularly affluent parents, I pay for you to come and see you 2 or 3 times a week. Surely you can get my kid to the top level if I'm paying for that, because I can go and pay to get my face fixed and put new cheekbones in. So I can. Good
work, by the way.
I can pay for anything. I'm used to paying. So as long as I'm giving you enough money, surely you can make my kid this superstar. But with that, just the maths of it doesn't work. The hours don't work. If you're not doing a huge amount of practice on your own outside of your team and organized stuff, you're going to get nowhere near your potential as a player, whether that's your genetic potential or whatever we discuss. But you can't do it just by practicing a couple of times a week or even 3.
Yeah, you're 100% right. And I guess you feel a different pressure because of that pay-to-play model. In the UK, they are paying, but it's something like, between 10 and 20 pounds a month just to cover match fees. So there's not that pressure on the coach. And last time we met, we talked about complacency, because in the UK, kids are always going to come to training sessions. If one doesn't come back, another will take their place. But from that pay-to-play point of view, are you giving them extra homework? Are you expected to do that? Are you then pushing them to practice more away from practice as part of your development model?
Yeah, and I give them work to do at home all the time. And this is what you've got to do. X, Y, Z, go away and do this. And often the chats with the parents will be, well, look, Johnny needs to play a little bit more, Paul. He's enjoying his playing time, but he wants more playing time. And I just look them in the eye and say, so tell me, what's he doing outside of practice? Tell me how much he's doing to improve, because he's only going to improve during our team practices commensurate with the other kids that are actually doing the practice with him. So how is he going to get that extra bit to get more playing time and what he wants if he isn't doing stuff on his own? And a lot of the time, in fairness to the parents, they're honest and just say, look, he does He does trumpet. He's in Boy Scouts. He's got this stuff going on 2 or 3 nights a week. We don't live in an area where we've got a wall that he can go and play against. So he doesn't do that much outside of practice. And I'm like, well, there's your answer then.
And it's difficult because, again, in the old days, I would play football. I think my mom and dad would take me to scouts, but these days they have swimming, scouts, something else. Everything is now organized and facilitated by adults. So I guess it is quite difficult for kids to put in the time. Plus school's really important, right? Can't forget about school.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure we're coming up with many answers here, but it's a good discussion about the complexities of the situation. And I guess if anyone does solve it, it's a $1 billion solution, because it is a big problem around the world now.
Educating, it is a big problem. Educating the kids and the parents, right? And the parents have to take part of the responsibility. We've talked a lot about coaches. We're talking about the players taking their responsibility, the parents as well. What a great lesson to teach your kid or kids. You want to be good at this, Johnny? Yeah, I want to be really good at it. I enjoy it. It doesn't, whether it's football or not. Yeah, I really enjoy it. I want to be good at it. Okay, well, how much are you going to do to improve? Well, I've got these other 4 things that I enjoy doing as well. Okay, that's fine. That's fine, kid. But I'm going to teach you now. If you want to be really good at one thing, you might have to drop a couple of these other things. I'm not telling you you've got to drop everything, but you might need to just drop 2 or 3 of these things and just focus on a couple of things. And if you want to be really good in a certain area and get a specific job, you're going to have to spend time in that area of expertise and not try to do a million things at once. So there's a lesson to teach the kids.
Yeah, I think that's a valuable lesson. And you know what? I always said as a coach, being a professional is down to so many variables that you cannot control as a coach. It's up to the player. You just mentioned the parents. Too many things for you to control. So all I ever demanded of players was to work hard. You know, just to work hard. I think that's a valuable life lesson. Work hard, and that might take you somewhere. If you don't work hard, you won't go anywhere. See, last topic, just to wrap up this discussion, and you talk about early specialization, and you've kind of hinted at it there.
Yep.
Regardless of street football or not, and the death of street football or not, do you think that early specialization is key to a player making a living from football? I'll just say it like that, not necessarily being a professional, but making a living from football eventually.
Well, we quickly just separate early engagement and early specialization, right? Early engagement just means picking up a ball really early and engaging with that ball early. Neurologically, it's something that you really need to do if you want to make it to a high level.
Buyer talks about it a lot.
Yeah, he does. Early engagement, massively important. Early specialization, is it important? Yes and no. When I talk about early specialization, I'm talking about playing more football than anything else. I don't mean you play football.
Just trying to wind people up on Twitter, Paul.
Yeah, I think part of it is that people get the wrong end of the stick, right? And they're thinking, Paul's saying nobody's allowed to touch a tennis racket. Paul's saying nobody's allowed to go and swim. He's saying you're not allowed to go to the park with your mates and play basketball. No, of course I'm not. I'm not a complete idiot. When you've gone through something yourself, it's much easier to understand and explain. I've been through it myself. I played football 90% of the time. The other 10% of the time, I played cricket, badminton, golf. I swam. All of those things are important. I'm not an idiot on a physiological perspective, like the body mechanics, right? It makes sense to have a varied amount of movement, particularly as you're growing up. You don't just want to be kicking a soccer ball, but at the same time, there is the other argument. Some of these kids growing up in the favelas, where Brazil regularly produces some of the best attacking players in the world, some of those kids never see a tennis racket or never touch another sport. They grow up in the favela with a football, never see anything else. But does that mean that's the answer all the time and everyone follows that same path? No.
I kind of baited you there, didn't I?
Yeah, you got me, mate. You got me.
But this has been a good discussion, because what I'm hearing is, coaches got to take responsibility, players got to take responsibility, parents have got to take responsibility. The culture has to be right. If you want to make it in football, you have to work hard and you have to commit to football. Not 100%, as you've said, but there has to be a commitment level there. So the death of street football has not killed professional players or players going into academies. It may be further down the chain where it's having an impact. So we haven't come up with any solutions, Paul. So this has been a total waste of time.
Brilliant. We've done nothing. We ranted and cried and solved nothing for anybody.
I have enjoyed the therapy. Let's just put it that way. No, we're going to put this out on YouTube, and you know what? If anyone does have alternative opinions or solutions, then please comment, let us know, because this is a good debate to have, and it's been avoided for far too long with a lot of coaches, because what they do earns them money. So they don't want kids to go away and practice on their own. They want them to come to the coach for their practice. And I get that. That's your business, and that's how you put food on the table. I get it. But there needs to be a wider discussion about this. So I'm glad we've kicked it off today.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, coaches want to have the kids come to them privately as well as their team sessions. They want them to do both.
Exactly. So I get that. Right, Paul, that's us. I think we're out of time now. Not quite sure what the time is, but good chat. We'll do this again in a couple of weeks. I'll let you come up with a topic this time. You can bait me.
Yeah, I'll come up with a topic and I'll bait you. Yeah, let's do that.
Thank you very much, Paul.
Cheers, Kevin.